And we're live.
Got it.
And hi, Sandy. We're live with Sandy Gennaro, my old friend. Hi,
Hi,
Sandy.
Vicky. How you doing?
This is
That's-
kind of, oh God, and listen to this. Now it's, oh my God, and oh my God, Sandy, it's doubling us. No. Okay, wow. This is one of those days where everything is going wrong. So we have to beat the odds in business and in life because some days
And in live streams.
and in live streams. And so normally we'd be live on 4 different platforms. Now we're live only on Facebook, but I'll take it because I'll then put the link up everywhere and we'll be everywhere later. But Sandy, we're here now.
Awesome. That's the main thing. All's well that ends well, Vicky.
That's right. And I'm so glad, happy to see you again. And as I was telling you just before we went live, I found 1 hour ago, this represents every one of these envelopes is filled with pictures that you are in.
I
So
can't.
I'm gonna give you a little sample right now because you haven't seen any of these. This is you playing drum. Oh, there's a ring. Let's get that ring light out of here. This is you, right, over there,
Right? With my
Whoops.
Boy Scout shirt on.
with playing drums with Elliot Easton of the Cars, Ricky Bird of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, of which you were a Blackheart, Huey Carroll,
Right.
and who's there in the middle, and Gary Silver,
And Gary Silver.
and
Wow.
Gary Silver,
At
and
the Rock and Roll Cafe. Rock and Roll Cafe.
that is at the
New York
Rock
City.
and Roll Cafe. Wait, and here, oh God, I have so many, I have you, you're playing drums with Frank Stallone at my opening night of True Blue. Do you
I
remember that?
flag. I remember that flag.
I mean, I have
Frank Stallone.
do you remember that?
I kind of, now it's jogging. The memory is jogging.
I mean, I'm telling you, I have pictures of you playing drums with like, with everybody. It's just crazy. What fun we had back in the day, huh?
Absolutely. Well, I'd like you to sit down with a cup of coffee and either scan those or take those pictures because I really love to see it. I really love to
Yes, I
see it.
promise you, I'm going to send you a bat. I was going through them and I was going, oh my God. Oh, I remember that night. You and Carmine Rojas at my Spodioti gig and you just were playing with Andy Timmons. What band
Right.
was Andy in? Andy was in a big band.
Andy was in a band called Danger Danger.
Danger. That's right.
I saw him about 2 years ago.
Really?
In Dallas. I did a cancer benefit for a breast cancer constituent. It's a breast cancer advocacy group run
Wow.
by April Samuels, and he was
Mhm.
part of it. He did like a little thing in support of that cause. So I actually ran into him at that cancer gig in Dallas. Maybe it was like prior to the pandemic, but he still looks great, and he's still
Wow.
playing really really good. He does a
Does
solo thing now. He's got his own band, and
ah
yeah, Andy Timmons,
does
man.
he still have the hair?
No, he doesn't have the hair anymore. Neither do I.
No. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, those days I guess have come
It
and
happens to
gone.
the best of us, right?
It happens to the best of us. We talked a lot last time about wait, a couple things we didn't talk about that I have to get in before I forget. How did you meet? I did not know John Waite back in the old days in New York. How did you and John meet? Because we've become fast friends now.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, we're friends we still contact each other on LinkedIn, I think it is. But
Mhm.
I think I met him. I don't remember the actual incident, but I probably met him at the China Club. Now, I remember the thing I remember most about John Wade, a good friend of mine, Earl Slick, and Carmine Rojas were in his band when Missing You was starting to take off.
Right.
And somehow John Wade and I shared a cab together going downtown to some club. And it was right about a month or two after I got Cyndi Lauper's gig, when Girls Just Want to Have Fun was just released.
Oh, wow.
Nobody knew who Cyndi Lauper was outside of New York City. And riding down in a taxi cab, John Wade says to me, "Hey man, you want to join my band? I have a hit single out. You want to join my band?" And I kind of thought about it for a second. I go, John, I already committed to this singer named Cyndi Lauper, and she's got a single out too, and I really
Wow.
like it. I love the band. I think I'm going to stay with it and give it a shot. and that's the rest is history.
That's crazy, but you stayed friends, I
We
assume.
stayed friends, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I forget who I was. I was with Travers. The first time I was with the Pat Travers band was 81, 80, 81, 82. And then I went back with him in 2010 up until 2016. And around 2014, 2015, John Waite opened, or we opened for them, for the John Waite band, or John Waite opened for Travers. I don't remember. It was a gig in Florida.
Uh-huh.
And we stood backstage and reminisced and stuff about the old days.
I just realized, as a matter of fact, that the reason I met John, only virtually so far, was because of you, because I saw you guys having a conversation on LinkedIn. And I said, wait a minute, Cyndi, John. And I reached out to both of you privately. And John ended up, he's done my show a couple of times, and I bought some of his art.
Right.
He's amazing.
Yeah, I see some of that stuff on LinkedIn. He does like self-portraits and stuff.
He did a guitar, and
Right.
he did one for Snuffy, and it's real. He's a wonderful artist. But so did you guys ever get to play together? Did you ever sit?
Um, I'm not. I never played in his band officially,
Right, right.
but I'm not really sure. One of those hazy nights at the China Club, he might have hopped up. He might have been part of whatever was going on there. But I don't remember particularly even jamming with John.
I did a jam at the China Club for a while too, and I haven't found those pictures yet, but I'm sure I have them of you doing my jam there. I
Man,
mean,
and that stack is without the China Club included.
that stack is the Rock and Roll Cafe, Spodiotes, Woody's, True Blue, Cafe Wa, the Marquee. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, it was a lot of places. It was a lot of rock and roll.
That was an era I'm so grateful to have been a part of. Excuse me one second, Vicky.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. Get something to drink. Go ahead. I'm so upset that we're not on all these other platforms right now. I'm gonna give Restream a piece of my mind.
That's all right. You put it as a pre-record.
Well, yeah, yes, I will, but it just upsets me because we should be live on all of those
I know.
places. So I'm
It
just
happens.
writing it. I'm writing it up right now on Facebook, so people find us.
Okay.
So Cyndi, what's your day like now? Like, okay? I know you have this whole speaking engagement thing, and you have a book, and we're going to talk about all of that. But what's your playing life like? Is it still pandemic? Is it post-pandemic?
It's definitely post-pandemic. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee
Hmm.
since 2014, excuse me, and everything is wide open. Everything is basically back to normal. You still see some people wearing masks at the airport or whatever, like randomly. There's no mandate anymore. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to Canada on Friday, and they just lifted the mask mandate. You don't need to you used to have a proof of vaccination, blah, blah, blah. You don't need that anymore. So my playing life now is I still teach. This is my studio here where my couple of
Oh, wow. Oh, that's fabulous.
yeah, two drum sets face to face. So I still teach here, not as often as I did in Manhattan at the Collective. So I maybe have a couple of students a week or whatever. So I do that, and I play in a cover band, a 70s and 80s hits cover band named Rock United, and that keeps me busy playing wise. I do a random session here and there, but I'm mostly involved with speaking and maintaining that business and the preparation for and the follow up of different meetings, contacting people as a follow up, and then writing contracts for upcoming speaking gigs, agreements, and now since the book has been released, I've been doing a lot of marketing in regard to the book. Thank you, Vicki.
Absolutely. We'll talk about it. And
Okay.
also you can get signed drumsticks if you go. Mine are personally signed to me. You can get those if you go to SandyGennaro.com. You can order some signed drumsticks and a signed book. So Sandy, I wanted to talk to you. This is what I really wanted to talk to you about today, because we talked a lot about the rock and roll. Although before we move into how you changed your life,
Here we go.
Now we talked about John. We didn't talk about Barry Gibb, though. We didn't talk about the Bee Gees, about Robin Gibb, actually. Wait, which Gibb did?
I did the Robin Gibb solo record, which was produced by Maurice Gibb and Tom Dowd at the Bee Gees studio in North Miami. It used to be called Middle Ear Studios. And because prior to that, I did a record with Tom Dowd, bless his heart. I love that man. He's in the Producer Hall of Fame or whatever. I did a Blackjack record with him, which had Michael Bolton in it, Bruce Kulick, and Jimmy Haslip. That was my first pro record, signed to a major label. Tom Dowd produced it at Criteria Studios. Maybe 5 years later, he called me. He says, "Hey, man, you want to do Robin Gibb's solo record?" I said, "Sign me up." So I flew down to Miami, and Phil Chen was the bass player. Mitchell Fromm was the keyboard player who went on to be kind of a noted producer himself. And Steve Ferris from a band from the 80s called Mr. Mister.
Oh, yeah, I remember Mr.
So Robin and Maurice were in the studio, and Tom Dowd were in the studio all the time. And then every once in a while, Barry would come in with a big fat hash joint. And but yeah, so that was really, really good. Really a good experience doing that. And Robin Gibb is the Bee Gees overall. I didn't get to know Barry very well, aside from the fact that he carried around really good product around with him. But
I bet.
Robin and Maurice were really, really nice, down to earth people, very friendly. They made the whole band feel welcome, and the hospitality was off the charts.
Well, what year was this, Sandy? Was this when the Bee Gees were riding high?
I think it was 1985.
Oh, so the Bee Gees were hotter than hot then.
Yeah, they were still all alive. Let me see.
Show it. Because this is this is after Saturday Night Fever, who, by the way, I went out to lunch with Donna Pascal last week. Donna was the girl in Saturday Night Fever who danced with John Travolta.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, right.
So that was in the late 70s. So the Bee Gees were like crazy hot when you were playing with Robin.
Yeah. It was I don't know if you could see it. I can't move my whole thing because I'm plugged into the light and everything.
I see Prince. Okay,
but
wait.
Right at the top.
Yeah.
The Blackjack record, the second one from the top.
Okay.
That's Robin.
There's a light glaring, so I can't really.
It's the one to the left of that.
Okay, wait, that's not in view.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Oh, there. Ooh. Oh, wait, there.
Yeah, right there.
I see.
Right to the left, that's Robin Gibb's record.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And it was called Walls Have Eyes.
Wow, I'm gonna have to is it streaming? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think you can Google it. It'll come up. Some info would come up, but I'm not really too sure about the stream. Where you can. I'm sure you can get something on YouTube. They got everything on YouTube.
They do have everything on YouTube. And so seeing you play going through my photos and finding you with Ricky Byrd. Okay, you and Ricky go back to Joan Jett. Then seeing you play with John Paris. You also played with Johnny Winter for a while. Did you play with Johnny?
Yeah, I did. I played with him in the early 90s. Mostly around Manhattan. We rehearsed at SIR on 52nd Street. We did some gigs in Club Benet, I think a place called Club Benet in Jersey. It was like a dinner theater thing. But I played for about 2.5 years, and then things started going a little sour with his old manager and whatever. So things on the business end got a little fugazi. So I ended up leaving, and then after I left, and Johnny actually turned a new leaf. He found a new manager, and the manager straightened them out financially, straightened them out as far as health goes. And I think his name was Paul, and I'm embarrassed I forgot his last name. But anyway, so Johnny was on the top of the world. He cleaned up from all the all the shit that he was doing, and all the maintenance programs and all that he was doing, and he was his merch was selling. He was doing a new record, and then it's like Stevie Ray Vaughan, when he cleans up and sees the light and his life turns around. That's when he that's when Stevie Ray Vaughan died in the plane crash. He's straight, and the same thing happened with Johnny. It seems like when he got all straightened out and he was starting to make money again and be healthy, that's when the Lord took him. Go figure.
So you were playing with Johnny. I mean, I saw John Paris play with Johnny a couple of times. He was his bassist, even though John
Yes.
was a great lead guitar player.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because Dan Hickey was always playing drums with Amy and John when they played my clubs, but then
Right.
I found all these pictures of you playing with John and Amy.
Yeah,
It's like, wait, what?
I played with John and Amy all over Manhattan, especially at BB King's on 42nd Street.
Yes,
Lucille's, the bar that
right.
as we played every Monday. We had like a residency there. It was blues night at Lucille's, and me, John, and Amy played. And we used to invite people coming down. It was a big, John would call people up, and John was the one responsible. John Paris was the one responsible for getting me or introducing me to Margot Lewis, who was Bo Diddley's manager and keyboard player, and Deb Hastings, who was Bo Diddley's musical director and bass player. There was a gig after John Paris, Johnny Winter. John Paris went and played second guitar with Bo Diddley.
Oh, I don't even
And
remember. Yes, I do kind of remember that,
yeah, and,
actually.
and there was a drummer. There was a drummer named Yoshi, and he had to go
I
back.
have pictures of Yoshi.
Yeah, well, John said, listen, Sandy, called me and he said, I don't think Yoshi's going to be with the band very much longer. He has some family issues in Japan or something, so he had to go back there to deal with that.
Uh-huh.
There's a gig tomorrow night at the New China Club. I didn't really like the New
I
China.
never went to the new one. I
I
never
went
saw
there
it.
once or twice. He said there's a big jam session there. Margot was going to be there, and Deb, Bo's bass player and manager and keyboard player. He says I'll arrange for it's going to be a sit-in situation, so it'll be a good opportunity for you to sit in. We'll play a shuffle. So he kind of engineered that,
Wow.
and I ended up playing with Margot and Debbie, and then the next thing I knew, I got a call, hey, you want to play with Bo Diddley? So that was the start of my gig with Bo Diddley. Was the last 5 years of his life. It was like it was
Wow.
really. I played Bo Diddley's last show.
Oh,
It was just magical. It was really good.
oh, wow. How was he as a human being to
He was
play with?
he was well to play with. He was awesome. My memory of that first gig, it was the House of Blues in New Orleans, sold out. And when Deb, the musical director and bass player, called me and said, "You want to do the gig?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Do you have any tapes or a CD?" She said, "No, you don't need any of that." I said, "Well, do you have a set list of what Bo likes to play?
Right?
Do a little Oh, you don't need any of that." She said sometimes Bo doesn't play the same song in the same key one night after the other. So I got to look at the neck and then look over to the band and go, hey, 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 give the key to the band. Just watch his foot. The foot will give you the tempo, and then he'll start the song and it'll give you what the song is, and just follow along. You'll be fine. So there I was, 10 minutes before we had a quick line check. We didn't even have a proper sound check.
Wow.
Bo wasn't at the sound check, but 5, 10 minutes before the gig, Deb comes over to me, and I'm kind of a little nervous because I have no idea what's coming, and I have to be the drummer. I have to drive that car, but I have no idea what kind of car I'm going to get to drive.
Oh my gosh.
So Deb says, "Hey, Sandy, did you meet Bo yet?" I said, "No." She said, "Go down. He's right next to the stage in a chair. Go introduce yourself." So I introduced myself to Bo. He goes, "We're gonna rock tonight, brother. You're gonna rock tonight. What's your name?" I go, "Sandy." He goes, "We're gonna rock tonight." He goes, you look like Red. You look like Do you mind if I call you Red?" I said, "No, you call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for sound check." It was really good. Yeah, he was just a wonderful. The value that I got from Bo Diddley's gig is, yes, the playing and playing with a Hall of Famer, and but the value was hearing his stories, waiting for a flight at the gate, and hearing some stories about him partying with Ray Charles and
Oh,
him and BB King making barbecue. You know,
oh.
the stories that people don't usually hear. Some of them I can't repeat in a public forum, but he was just awesome. Bo was just awesome, and
Do you know if they ever, did Bo ever, like, did they ever document these stories of his, or are they going down with you?
Uh, well, I'm sure I'm not the only one on the planet that knows these stories.
Right.
They were relayed to me in just between me and him, and I don't know. I don't think there would been. I haven't read everything written about Bo Diddley, but I don't think that at least some of these stories I don't think went anywhere else because of the nature of
Wow.
Triple X.
Was it that way? How was it playing with Johnny Winter? What was his mindset like in those days?
Well, towards the end of my tenure with him, he was still basically on a program. He sat down a lot of times when he played on stage. He would stand up, but he was very fragile and very
Mhm.
frail, but very,
Mhm.
very nice guy. Unfortunately, he was in a kind of a foggy state, and I don't want to mention any names, but some of the people that were involved with him on a management level kind of took advantage of the fact that he wasn't really attentive to what was going on in
Ah,
a business way. But then those people kind of that's when I kind of left because things now, well, you got to share rooms. Well, you know what? I can't really share rooms. So things got a little fugazi business wise without going into
yeah.
detail. The manager passed away, which opened the door to this guy Paul, who en-
Right.
who ended up straightening Johnny out, and yeah, yeah,
I
straightened
gotcha.
him out, and actually, decreased his medication little by little by little by little by little without Johnny knowing it, and then all of a sudden, Johnny was just drinking orange juice for like a month or two, still thinking that he was getting a little bit of medication. And Paul broke. This is the story Paul told me.
Mhm.
He said, and then I told Johnny, I said, Johnny Winter, I said, Johnny, you've been straight. You've been drug free for about a month now. And Johnny ended up bursting out in tears, crying tears of
Wow.
happiness. So that was like
Wow.
it was like a rebirth to Johnny. And I'm so sorry, I can't think of Paul's last name because he did a lot of good things for Johnny Winter and brought him back to life, basically, and recorded some new records and put a band together. I think he played second guitar behind Johnny. Paul did, and yeah, as I said, the merch he's starting to do big gigs again, and healthy, and then he ended up passing away. So, but he had a few good healthy years, I think. Before he passed away. But he was really a nice guy. I remember when we were rehearsing one time at SIR on 52nd Street. We lived on 57th Street. So my
Mhm.
wife and I had just had maybe 3 or 4 months our new baby. So our kid was like 3 or 4 months old. This was how I remember it was like 1994. So it was early 90s that I played with him. And she brought our daughter Jerry and Johnny held her, and I'm kind of a little bit nervous because he is a little frail, but he held her, and the way he looks at his watch, Johnny, what time is it? He would go. So he was a little sight challenged because of his albino, his
Right,
sight.
right.
So he held my daughter Jerry, and he looked in her face like this close. Oh, she's beautiful. Look at this close away. Yeah,
Oh,
he was a sweetheart. And I mentioned to him the fact that I saw him at the Fillmore East when Bill Graham.
stop. We were at the same show. I think 1971. It was Rick Derringer. It was Edgar. It was Johnny. Were you at that show at the
No, you
Fillmore?
know what? You know when I was there, Vicky, I was there the night in between shows at the Fillmore, Bill Graham used to come out and say who's next week and to come in attraction
Right,
as they were doing the set change.
right.
This night he goes, I want to introduce you to this young hotshot guitar player from Beaumont, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Winter. And he comes out. He didn't play or anything, not that I remember, but he just brought him out to introduce him. Now, I'm not sure if he ended up playing. I don't remember, but I remember Bill Graham introducing Johnny and Johnny coming out in the long blonde hair
That had to be really early because I think it was 71 when I saw it was supposed to be Edgar Winter's White Trash, but Johnny played also, and Derringer it was forget about it. It was
Yeah, that
crazy.
first album, Johnny Winter and was just an awesome. That was with Rick and
Yeah.
I think I forget what the bass Tommy Shannon, the bass player. But Johnny ended up telling me, he goes, Sandy, you know what? One of the reasons why I got into all those drugs in the 70s was the fact that I'm a blues man. He looked at me and went, Sandy, I'm a blues man. And Steve Paul, his manager at the time.
Oh, as Tony just said, is it Steve Paul? Is that who you were talking about?
No, Steve Paul was
Oh,
Johnny's original manager.
that was the no good guy.
No,
Okay.
no, no, no,
Oh,
no,
no, no,
no,
no,
no.
no.
The no good guy came after.
Okay.
I can mention his name because he's not with us anymore. His name was Teddy Slatus.
Okay.
All right, but before Teddy Slatus was Steve Paul, and
Okay.
Steve Paul had a club on St. Mark's below the Electric Circus called Steve Paul Scene.
Oh my God. Didn't Jerry Brandt start the Electric Circus? That was his, I think.
I think I'm not sure about
Yeah.
that, but I remember the Electric Circus was upstairs.
Right.
Steve Paul scene, and Steve Paul managed Johnny Winter, and Steve Paul wanted Johnny Winter to play rock and roll, and Johnny didn't want to play rock and roll. He wanted to
Mm,
play blues, and he goes,
mm.
"Man, Sandy, that was one of the reasons I did all those drugs, man, to play that rock, play that rock and roll." Man, you're digging up a lot of memories here, Vicky.
Well, all right. So I want to dig up some more. So okay, so that was those guys. So what was it like? So Cyndi, you were playing with Cyndi Lauper, for those not in the know, when she was before anybody knew who she was, and you were with her when she broke and broke huge. Did she change? What was Cyndi like on the like in
Cindy
the
was awesome. You know, the thing I remember about Cindy, I mean, people ask me what was your favorite gig, and every gig that I did was my favorite for a different reason.
right,
Cindy was my favorite because I was with her when nobody really knew who she was outside of New York City. If you
right,
didn't know who Blue Angel was, which was her first band,
right,
you didn't, and it was on Polygram, the same label as Benny Mardones and Travers and whatever. So I kind of knew about Blue Angel. and but that's what I like about because I joined her band when nobody knew who she was, and then 5 or 6 months later, she was selling 5, 6 million records. So it was the upward climb was like 45 degrees. It was just awesome, and I remember the big turning point. I joined the band in like the fall of '83, and New Year's. We went on the road in a Winnebago trying to break Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I remember we did a New Year's Eve, '83 into '84 at Roseland. We played about at 9 o'clock at night, opening for the Kinks.
oh.
And it was horrible. Kinks audience
Were
didn't.
the, were the Kinks were Ray with and Dave, were they fighting?
I don't know what they were,
Okay,
they were
because
fighting. We had to, as soon as we left, as soon as we finished that gig, the opening act for the Kinks, we had to leave because we went to the Savoy Theater and played the MTV New Year's Eve ball. '83 into '84, and Cindy and the band, I got to say, we killed it. So after the show, Dave Wolf, Cindy's manager, said, "Hey, we're going to continue our little Winnebago tour like January 5th. We're going to go back on the road and try to break Girls Just Want to Have Fun." Still, it was
right,
starting to get a little airplay. That's why, and the video was out on MTV. That's what created the excitement that MTV wanted us for that live gig.
right.
So we were supposed to go back on the road January 5th, like the day after New Year's Day, like January 2nd. I get a call. The band gets a call from David Wolf. "Hey, we're going to L.A." What? Well, based on that performance on MTV, NBC wants us for the Tonight Show. Carson. Um, uh, American Bandstand with Dick Clark wants us. Solid Gold, a TV show to tape
Sure.
pre-recorded wants us, and HBO is going to do a special. So we flew to LA, and we were on Carson, and that appearance on Carson, that was.
I posted, by the way, your name that to your name that
Oh,
to
the Stump the Band.
the Stump the Band. I posted that last time when you did the show. Yeah, it was great. That was classic.
Well, that was even before
Oh
anything.
yeah.
So
Oh
now,
yeah.
fast forward, when Cindy's on Carson, we're backstage and Carson's in the green room. And I said, "Hey, Johnny, do you remember me being on Stump the Band in 1976?" He goes, "No, we've had a lot of people on Stump the Band. I'm sorry." He goes, "What song did you sing?" And I said, "Pieces of Your Love." It's a song that I wrote. He goes, you were the one that gave the band the chords to that song?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Man, nobody's ever done that." Of course I remember that song. That stood out. That was a pleasure hanging with him because I was a huge fan of his.
Yeah, yeah,
Huge
yeah.
fan.
So now Cyndi, was she, so you're with her when nobody knows who she is except the people in New York who adored her, the Blue Angel. And then all of a sudden she breaks huge and you're with her through that. It had to be exciting and also hard on her. How did she change?
No, well, I don't want to say she changed, but when she is such a visionary and
Mhm.
she has exactly what she wants the performance to be. Not
Mhm.
only the songs, but what the band looked like, what we wore, what the stage looked like, the asymmetrical. She was not into symmetry.
Uh-huh.
The risers were off center. Instead of the drums.
Interesting.
Yeah, instead of the drums being in center, I was staged left, and the keyboard was staged right, and
Huh.
he had the whole center of the stage. And the bass player was in front of me. John McCurry, the guitar player, was in front of her, the keyboard. And even the ramps that go out from the stage into the arena, they weren't even. One was cricket, one, yeah. So
Wow.
she had a vision. The way the stage was splash painted, like we had this covering that we took on the road with us. That it was like a big rubberized carpet that was splash painted at the bottom. So, but as the she was able to control and have control and monitor all the aspects of the gig when it was a Winnebago gig. When
Right.
we were playing clubs or whatever. But as the gig got bigger and we played arenas, and now it's from a Winnebago, we went to a bus, went to three buses, four bus, then the semis and the PA. It was a lot. Now she had to hire an LD instead of using the club's lighting director. LD, front of house sound, monitor, and all of that. She had, I don't want to say she had a difficult time delegating, but she had to get used to the idea that she had to relinquish some of the monitoring of all of those things, like the lights. A certain light had to shine on her in a certain song, or
Uh-huh.
so she had to. I guess maybe it affected her in a kind of a stressful way as the gig got bigger because she had to learn to delegate. You hire an LD, let him do the lighting directing. You can sign off on it, but once you sign off on it, let him do his thing. Same with the monitors, same with the front of house sound. And I used a hybrid electronic drum set with acoustic drums. So, she had to go in the house and at sound check and make sure the acoustic drums sounded good to her in that
Right.
acoustic environment. And, as anybody that plays music knows, if you go from like a civic center to a theater, the sound acoustics change. Now you have padded seats with the curtains and the velvet in the theater, where last night you had cement cinder block walls and a cement floor. The
Right.
sound is totally different. Even though
Right.
the program and everything on my electronic drums is the same as the night before, it sounds different. So she would say, "Sandy, you changed it. You changed it from like you changed." No, Cindy, it's the same. They're all marked. No, no, you changed it. It sounds different. So she had to learn about the acoustic differences of venues and whatever. So it was a learning curve for basically. I did arenas before Cindy, so that wasn't new to me. But to Cindy, it was. So she
Right.
had to get acclimated. But once she got acclimated, I'll tell you what, she's just a joy to work with. I'll tell you what, she's her and Joni and Bo and all
Let's
the
talk.
people.
Okay, so let's talk about Joan. So So, okay, so but on the bus, on the plane or whatever, when you try, is Cyndi fun? Because I know she's very controlling and she's a perfectionist and she wants things to be, that's why she's so great. Is she able to let that go? I mean, I knew her, our kids applied for the same preschool. Like I met Cyndi across a preschool table a million years ago.
Right.
But so when you're not playing and the mask is off, is she just one of the guys? Is she fun? Is she?
She's fun. And you know what? Speaking of mask, I have pictures I have pictures of this too. I'm not sure if I want to show them publicly, but she used to wear this Groucho, the Groucho Marx eyes and the mustache and the nose. She used to put that on, come out of the bathroom or the bus with that on. She was cool, man. I don't have any kind of negative memory of she was always, and we always were on the same bus. It's not like she had a separate one.
Right.
We traveled together with David Wolf and whatever.
Cool.
Every once in a while, her and David used to take a car and go to the next gig in a rental. But for the most part, she traveled with the band. And same with Joan. And same with Joan. She always traveled with the band.
And what was, so Joan, was she a relaxed person off stage? What was her persona like?
Her persona was she was a effing rocker. She was an effing rocker. She loved to play loud. She loved going. I remember the Far East tour that we did. She loved to go sightseeing with the band and taking pictures in a temple. I have a ton of pictures of us and like doing everyday stuff.
And
She
would
was
she
good.
get recognized and bothered out in the world?
Not well, I'll tell you what, when we got off the plane in the Far East, I think it was I guess it was Tokyo, there was like a whole reception. It was like the Beatles arriving. It was like, they had barricades with all the fans waving for autographs, all about Joan, not necessarily about the band, but so that, and then there was a news conference. But going out in public, I don't remember her being hassled. And you know what? If someone came up to her, she would always oblige and sign. She's not one of
Nice.
these people that went, no, I'm eating. No, she would always sign. And I remember after gigs that she would sit in the catbird seat of the bus with the door open and the driver's next to her, and I would be sitting in the center there on a step, and she would just sign every order. There would be a line, and she wouldn't let the bus leave until all the autographs were signed.
Oh,
Everybody.
I love that about her.
It's like the artists that were successful, Vicky, they treat their people with respect. They treat their fans with respect and the realization that the fans are the ones that keep the lights on in their house. It's like, I found that puzzling with some artists treat their fans like crap, or no, not now, I'm eating. No, 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 no. I mean, yes, granted, some fans could be over the top, like touchy feely or whatever.
Right, right.
But for the most part, man, the artists that I work for that are in the Hall of Fame always treated their bands with respect, their fans with respect, and that's why they're in the Hall of Fame. That's why they keep bands for a long time. There's artists that I work for that will remain nameless at this point in a public forum, but they can't keep a band because they don't respect the musicianship. Musicians are a dime a dozen, and I've been told that in a meeting with this one artist. Wear long sleeves. Nobody wants to see your tattoos, Sandy. I go, well, I'm a drummer and I sweat a lot and I'm more comfortable. Well, you know what, Sandy? Drummers are a dime a dozen. If you don't want this gig, there's 50 people that want this gig. So your
Wow.
choice. So as soon as somebody offers me $1 more, I'm out of there. And then you hear the artist going, how come I can't keep a band? How come these musicians are so fickle? Well, it's because you don't respect them. End of story.
Sandy, can you tell that story again about what happened backstage and what changed your life and got you the Cyndi gig? Um, Speaking of fans and respecting the fans, because even though you did tell it to us a couple months ago, I think it bears repeating.
Okay, as I mentioned before, I was with the Pat Travers band in 1980, 80, 81, 82, and it was some point in time, like I think in the spring of 81 or early 82. We played a place in Connecticut called the Hartford Civic Center, I think it was, and it was a real hot gig. We were all in a dressing room and in a big hurry to get out of the dressing room and get on the bus because we had a long overnight drive. Our road manager was going, "Come on, hurry up!" I was always the last one out, being that I sweat down to my underwear and whatever. And I'm the only one in the dressing room rushing around getting my stuff. And there's this guy standing in the doorway with a pen and a camera. And I had a couple of choices. I could have blew by him like an arrogant rock star in a hurry, legitimately blew by him. I'm in a hurry, and or said, "Sorry, buddy, I'm in a hurry. I got to go," and just left. But I said, you know what? He's there to see the drummer. He's there to see me. The artist is on the bus already. And I remember telling, walking around the mall with my mother at 15 years old, dressed up like Keith Richards, with the hair and the shirt pulled up around his belly button, and my mother used to go, "I understand the hair, Sandy, and I understand the clothes, but why do you carry a pen all the time?" And I said, "Well, Ma, in case anybody asks for my autograph." So it was like I always had a fond, like an amusing thought of that people value somebody else putting their name on a piece of paper. So I said, "Man, the guy wants an autograph." I see him with a Sharpie or whatever. So I went over to engage him. I said, "Listen, buddy, I'm in a real hurry, but what can I do for you?" And he says, "Man, I love the way you play. You sound great, man. Blah, 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 blah. Can you sign this for me?" I said, "Sure." He goes, I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "Dave." So I signed. Okay, okay, Dave, I got to go. He said, "No, no, no. Could you take a picture?" I said, "Sure." He pulls out the Instamatic camera with the flash cube on the top. And he takes a picture. And I said, "All right, Dave, you got the picture and the autograph. I got to go." My road manager's yelling over there. "I got to go." He said, "No, no, one more thing, Sandy." He goes, "I'm a bass player in Connecticut, here in Connecticut. Would you mind getting me a gig in New York City?" I said, "Well, Dave, I can't really recommend you unless I hear you play. So I'll tell you what, here's my card. It's got my address on it, my home address, my home number. Send me a cassette. Again, it's 1981, 82. Send me a cassette of your playing, and I'll be happy to see what I can do." So he said, I can't believe you're giving me your home number and your home address." I said, "No big deal, Dave. Just go ahead and send me a cassette. I got to go. I'm in a hurry. I'm gonna get lambasted by my road manager." So he gives me a big hug. "Thank you, Sandy. You were so kind." I left. I got off the road from that leg of the tour. I got the cassette in the mail. It wasn't really that good with Dave's playing. I kept my promise and sent it to a couple of managers. I knew nothing really happened. But 3 years later, he called me and he said, "Hey, Sandy, listen. Do you remember me, Dave from Connecticut? You gave me your card." "Yeah, yeah, Dave, how you doing?" He goes, "I'm managing this girl now. She's going to be the biggest thing in 1984. I don't want you to miss this opportunity. I want you to be the drummer in the band. And we're doing our first record right now. Come down and meet her." I said, "You know what, Dave? I can't join a baby band. You want me to go back into Winnebago again?" "No, no, I can't. And share rooms again? I can't." He goes, "No, Sandy, listen, you may have to do that at the beginning, but I'll take care of you because this is a no-miss situation. It's going to be big. It's going to be." So I went down to the studio and met her. It was Cyndi Lauper. And based on some of the songs, the rough mixes that she was playing for me, I went ahead and joined her band and then went on the road in the Winnebago and tried to break the Girls Just Want to Have Fun. The video was out on MTV, blah, blah, blah. November of that was, I joined her band in October of 83. We did that MTV ball and New Year's Eve 83 into 84. Went on the road all of 84. In November of 84, we played the Charlotte Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina. And backstage, there was this woman that was drop dead gorgeous, and she wasn't even in line because I tell this story in my presentation where it's like the karma, the God energy, the universe not only inspires you to do the right thing or to go meet the right people with ideas, but it inspires other people to come into your path to take you where you want to go, and you can take them where they want to go. This is the way the universe works. So the girl, the drop dead gorgeous girl, was in the green room sitting in the corner while the band, after the show, the band and Cyndi was signing autographs. And she wasn't coming over. I found out later that the girl, her name was Sherry, the drop dead gorgeous girl, was there as a service to her girlfriend because her girlfriend was the girlfriend of the promoter of that show at the Charlotte Coliseum. So the girlfriend asked Sherry that afternoon, why don't you come?" "Oh, I'm not even a big fan of Cyndi Lauper. I don't want to go." I don't want to go. But as a favor to her girlfriend, Sherry ended up coming to the show. She hardly seen any of the show. She was backstage with her girlfriend the whole gig, and then there she was in the green room, and as we're signing autographs. So after we got done signing autographs, I went over and I introduced myself. They were sitting at a 10 top table with only two seats occupied, and I went over and I said, "Excuse me, is anybody sitting here?" And she said, "Well, there is now." And I said, "Oh, cool." So I sat down and we had a conversation. I invited her to the next gig the next night at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. She came. We had more time to get acquainted. We started seeing each other long distance because I went on back on the road. She went back to Charlotte, whatever. And then almost a year from the night I met her, she came and I said, "You know what, Sherry?" I said, "This is getting more difficult bringing you to the airport. Why don't you ask your parents if you can move up to New York with me and we can live together, start a life together." God bless you.
Thank you. I'm having an allergy attack. I'm
That's
trying
why
to
I'm
silence
having
it.
I'm
Yeah.
having it I'm having it too. But anyway, so she said, I don't know. She was 20 years old at the time. So
Wow. Okay. How old are you?
I was 30, 33.
Okay.
I'm 13 years older than her. So she says, "Well, I don't know. My parents are very Southern parents, and now I'm going to be asking them as a 20-year-old to move to New York City. She lives on a ranch or farm, 12 acres outside of Charlotte. And I'm asking her to come to New York City in the middle of Manhattan with a 33-year-old rock drummer,
Oh my God.
long hair, earrings, and tattoos." But luckily, her parents signed off on it. She
They
came up.
did?
Yeah, they did because she came up. We started living together. That was in '85, November of '85. We got married. We lived together 5 years. Got married in 1990. Had our daughter Jerry in 1994, and we're still together 38 years later.
Okay.
38 years, Vicky.
I want to talk to you about this, Sandy. This is, congratulations. It's extraordinary. And in rock and roll, that's like 150 years. I mean, it's,
Absolutely. But you know what? It's all from the moral of the story, Vicky. It's a great story about how the universe puts people together. But you have to think right and you have to treat people right with respect. Everybody deserves an equal amount of respect because we all have a little soul inside of us. And that's the commonality of all human beings. And we're going to be judged by the way we made people feel when they crossed our path. That's what I believe.
I
Everything we
totally
make.
agree with you.
But the bottom line is that I obliged this guy Dave in the doorway of that Hartford Civic Center 5 minutes, and it changed my life. Not only led to one of the biggest gigs of my life, being part of the Cyndi Lauper thing at the beginning,
Right.
but I met the woman who's my soulmate. She's upstairs right now, 38 years later. Have
So,
a
Sandy,
kid.
I wanted to ask you about this because you go on the road, you were out on the road a lot of your years together. How do you keep this marriage together? I mean, were there challenges for you guys, or was it just smooth sailing all the time?
Um, I'll tell you what, it was smooth sailing in ways that people think it wouldn't be smooth sailing. In other words, there's two people involved in a relationship, and
Mhm.
there's got to be a mutual trust. There's got to be a mutual trust, and there can't be any unfound suspicion. Because when there's unfound suspicion, that's when there's problems happening. But if both people are trustworthy, and I'll trust Sherry till the day I die, I have no qualms. She's the most trustworthy person on this planet that I know, and I was always trustworthy. She wasn't one of these people that would call. This is before cell phones.
Right.
Would call my hotel room the landline, and if I wasn't there at midnight, she wouldn't automatically think that I'm out somewhere screwing a groupie or something. Oh well, he's probably in the bar. Whatever. Um, that's very much unlike my first wife, my practice wife. If she called my room, my practice wife, no kids, thank God, no kids. But she would call my room at 12 midnight and assume that I'm in bed with somebody if I didn't answer the phone. But not only did she assume that, she was so insecure in herself that she didn't have a lot, she didn't feel good about herself as a person. She didn't value herself as a person and didn't think I valued her as a person. So therefore,
Mm.
I was out screwing around. Not only did she think I was screwing around, but she hung up the phone going, okay, well, if he's going to do it, I'm going to go take a shower and go out. And she would go to places like Tracks, people, Rock and Roll Cafe, places in Manhattan that I know everybody.
Right.
I would get calls from doormen at Tracks going, or the bartender at Tracks going, "Hey, Sandy, you still married to that so and so, that girl?" Yeah. Well, as far as I know, well, I saw her come in Tracks the other night with hand in hand with a guitar player with brown curly hair. So anyway, she would go out. So that was a very toxic situation where I would be in the bar with my buddy having a beer, where she assumed that I was doing something else and acted upon it.
Hmm.
That's the negative part. Sherry upstairs never was that. There was never, ever second guessing 20 questions. Where were you last night? What'd you do? Did you meet anybody? All that, I hear bandmates talking about their significant others, putting them through the 20 questions thing every time they call when they're on the road. It was horrible. Listen, she moved up in November of 85, my wife did, from Charlotte, North Carolina. March of 86, I go to Europe to start a European tour with Queen. I was as the opening act for Queen in a band called Kraft. And this is before cell phones. So I went on the road for 5 months in Europe, being able to call my wife, who's now in an apartment by herself.
And she's young, right? She's just a
She's
kid.
21 years old. And she's in an apartment. She had a gig at the Hard Rock Cafe, luckily, that when it was on 57th Street. So
Right.
that was walking distance. We lived 6th Avenue. The Hard Rock was between 7th and Broadway. So, but she was in a doorman building, so I knew she was safe as far as the living. But
Right.
she was by herself. I said to I'm on the plane over to Europe. I go, well, it's going to be another 4 months till I see Sherry again. She's either going to be there or not when I get back.
Wow.
And she was there. She was there, and I spoke to her, from the lobby phone, like, for 5 minutes, like once a week. And it would always be an
Wow.
amorous conversation. It wouldn't be, a million questions. It would be, and I went home, and I remember walking in the door after 4 or 5 months, and there she was, the candle lit, and the nice dinner on the table, and the bouquet of roses. It was just, she's a special person. She's a one of a kind person, and we're together.
Sandy, this is really this is a very important conversation, more so than you realize. Like, I can't tell you how many I go to meetings and a lot of this stuff comes up. Actually, today is my anniversary in the People, Places, and Things program, if you know what that is.
I
But
don't.
it's not, it's an AA program, but it's not no, it's not. It's for friends and family of people who go to those things.
I
I'm also an addict, alcoholic, but I go to the other program too. And today is 17 years I've been going to that program. And
Awesome.
this is a lesson. So you never cheated on the first wife, I'm assuming.
No.
And so you're not that way, but I'm guessing that Sherry's trust in you solidified that part of yourself that you would never have considered straying.
Absolutely. Just it's just the thought of me doing something like being infidelity. What's the word? Be cheating
Being
on her,
unfaithful. Yeah.
being unfaithful, and how that would make her feel. And for that, when you think about being unfaithful on the road, it's like, it's like literally, it's 5 seconds of Shangri-La, and then she's in a cab. So now that little 5 seconds of Shangri-La, am I gonna risk the years that I have invested with a woman sitting at home? You gotta have a heart, Yeah, you gotta have a heart. I mean,
Except
I'm not.
Sandy, I got to tell you, I've been shocked to learn of some rock stars who seemingly and actors as well, who seemingly have these ideal relationships that we look at and go, wow, they have a great marriage. That's one rocker that really kept, and then find out, no, they've been fooling around the whole goddamn time.
Right.
It's shocking to me when I hear this stuff.
One factor, Vicky, and it's not that I've never done drugs in my life. If the '80s or whatever. The '80s were, there was the uptown and the downtown. There was like, the alcohol and the
And
the
then there were
marching
those of us who did all of those things.
the marching powder. So, um, and I wasn't innocent in regard to those things, but I always had I never went overboard. And I think that was maybe one factor that, when somebody's really drunk, and someone else wanders over in the bar and they're really drunk and they happen to be really attractive, and it's like, so your resistance gets, you're involved with the rehab kind of thing. So you know what I'm talking about. Where your resistance, your constitution goes out the friggin' window, and you're looking at this woman and she's gorgeous, and you're half in the bag, and oh, why not? You want to go have
Sandy,
a nightclub?
I can't tell you how many people I know that is sober as a judge that carry on the
Right.
behaviors. You can't blame it on the booze
No.
or the pills.
Right. You're right. You're right. I mean, that's not the only factor, but in some cases where the person wouldn't normally if they were straight. And sometimes the alcohol breaks down. You do shit that you wouldn't normally do if you were straight. Sometimes, and it depends on the person too. Again,
Absolutely.
in the '80s, I had my share of drinking and doing a little line or two or whatever at 4 in the morning. But I
Yeah.
go home. I go home. There might be a little conversation, but I'm going. I'm going home, and because I know who's waiting for me at home. And now, since I had a child, since my daughter was born in 1994. And my daughter now is 28, and she is probably, she gets her strength as a woman from my wife, and equal opportunity and diversity and LGBT, A B C D E F G. She's equality, whatever. If I
Yes.
ever did anything, I don't want to suffer the wrath of my daughter. Are you kidding? She'd kick my ass. Not to mention my wife will be right behind her, but like, that's, there's a lot, there's too much water under the bridge, Vicky. And for that 5 seconds of Shangri-La, and then, am I going to risk 36 years of a relationship? Are you kidding?
It blows my mind to know that there are people who've made the opposite choice and taken that 5 minutes of Shangri-La and destroyed their family, destroyed their wives, destroyed their kids. And it's almost irreparable, still trying to make up the damage that gets done. I
I feel
really respect that you haven't walked that road.
I haven't walked that road, and I will never ever walk that road if I haven't so far. The way my life is, when I look around and all everything on this wall triggers a ton of memories,
I bet.
and a lot of them have to do with her, with my wife, her being with me at different places, and when we weren't all doing as good as we are now, there were times where, and she's the one that held it together. She was the consistent one with the job. With me, with the rock and roll life, it's a roller coaster. I don't
Right,
have to tell you, she was the consistent one that had the job, that carried health insurance for the family.
right.
Well, during my downtime, she was the one that kept the lights on. And now it's coming back. Now I'm able to tell her she don't have to work anymore. So it's awesome. But there's just too much history. And John Lennon. I remember John Lennon saying in an interview, he said, sometimes, the infidelity where you meet someone new and you have that honeymoon kind of that honeymoon excitement where you're finding out about people, and there's that electricity going on between
Sure.
two people. And then when you're together for a long time, and you hear bodily sounds, now you're burping in front of each other, and then you come out of the shower or whatever. And sometimes people think, well, you want to go, you're the butterfly, you want to go to another flower. and have that honeymoon feeling again, and have that new, fresh excitement feeling again. And all right, so you leave that one behind, you go to the new flower or the new person to have that honeymoon thing, but eventually that's going to become old and you're going to
Of
be farting
course.
in front of them too.
Of course.
So are you going to spend your life going flower to flower to flower to
There
flower?
are people who do that. Come on,
I know.
there's plenty of people that do that. We
I
know
know.
that.
You know what, Vicky? We can't rationalize why some people act the way they do, or some people the actions that some people have, or it's the actions that the things that they choose to do or choose to say. You got to scratch your head sometimes. It's you can't control that, but you have to. I'm sure you've heard stories like everybody else about in the groups that you're with and about relationships and about whatever whatever
Well,
it's,
I think where we started in talking about karma and that it all coming back and that you manifest, you reap what you sow. And
correct.
you have reaped the happiness that you have sown. And so okay, so in speaking of that, I want to get to your book before we go. Beat the
Okay.
Odds in Business and Life. And Cyndi, how did you have this change of life? You're a drummer, you're a rock and roll drummer. And I know it didn't start with the book. I know it started with speaking engagements, and the book is in support of that. But what made you shift gears at this stage of your life?
It coincides with the message in my speaking, in my presentation, is that the way you treat people, if you have a positive outlook, a positive anticipation of events that haven't happened yet, thinking positive about the future, because we have a choice of the way we think about future events or about an upcoming situation. We can think of it negatively or positively. So that, in combination with how you treat people, I didn't know what I was going to do when I was 71 years old, like I am now, or when I was tired of being in a Winnebago going on the road, or being in Europe for 6 months at a time. Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do when I wanted to come off the road. And it was out of me playing a gig with the Travers band, the second incarnation with the Travers band, 2016. I'm playing the San Diego Sports Arena, and I see this handicapped person, this woman in a wheelchair, in the first row. And when I'm playing the encore, I'm looking, scanning the first, second row, who's going to get my drumsticks? Because I go to the lip of the stage and I throw drumsticks out after. Handicapped person, that's the one. So I go, show's over, I go throw the drumstick to the hand, toss the drumstick to the handicapped person. The person next to her intercepts it. I could have just kept walking. I went back and I went, no, give it to her. He gave it to her. I replaced his drumstick. The next day, the husband, sitting on the other side of the woman in the wheelchair, Facebook messaged me, can I call you? I want to call you. Can I have your phone number? And I thought I needed to call my lawyer. I thought maybe I poked a rock. But I gave him, I didn't have to. I didn't
Yeah.
have to. I gave him my phone number. He called me, Sandy, thank you so much. You don't know what you did for my wife. Nobody pays attention to her. She's always down in the dumps, but you made sure she got the drumstick out of 20,000 people, blah, blah, blah. She's going to put it in a shadow box, the whole thing. She was next to tears, whatever. I'm coming to Nashville to speak. Are you available? I'd like you to meet you for coffee. I want to thank you in person. Again, it was just somebody I never met before.
Right.
I didn't have to. I met him downtown Nashville at Starbucks, and I told him the Dave in the Doorway, the Cyndi Lauper story.
Right.
And I told him some other story. How'd you get that gig? How'd you get Joan's gig? How'd you get that? He was a rock and roll fan. And he invites me to his speaking engagement. Long story short, he tells the story, the Dave in the Doorway story, to his speaking audience. I'm on the side of the stage. After he introduced me, told the story. It got a good reaction. He correlated it to the way CEOs should treat their employees. It's about the relationship. It's not about numbers all the time. It's not. So it's like, to spend time with the common person. Mr. Rockstar Drummer stops in the doorway, even though he's being told to get the hell out of the dressing room, whatever. So that's basically how it started. And he said to me, And walking out of that speaking engagement in Nashville, he goes, "Listen, in a couple of weeks, I'm speaking at to the future leaders of FedEx. I have an all-day training seminar with them. Why don't you come and tell the story yourself? Because you've had experience talking to drum clinics and your school and your music business classes or whatever. So
Right.
speaking in public is not an issue for me, as you can probably tell right now." So I went ahead. I went to the future leaders of FedEx, and he called me up. The long story short, he called me up. He goes, "I'll give you 10 minutes. Tell the Cyndi Lauper story yourself." So I told it. It got a really good reaction, and I correlated. I took his cue and correlated it to business. And he goes, walking out of there, he said, "Hey Sandy, you got a career. That's a very strong story, and you have a bunch of other similarly strong stories. So
Right.
I'll help you kind of form the engagement, get your PowerPoint together, whatever, and I'll help you any way I can." His name was Mike Pierce, and he goes by the stage name of Antarctic Mike, and he's a very successful speaker. And so basically, that's how it started, and
Now
that was close to 5 years ago.
this is another example, Sandy, of how you extended yourself without giving it a second thought. You didn't have to do it. You gave the woman the sticks. You made sure she got the sticks. It turned your life around. And if this is not an example of do the right thing and the right thing will happen,
There's
this
Vicky.
is beautiful.
There is no there is no good deed that goes unrewarded. You're rewarded in the same measure than you give. And there's no bad thing that goes unpunished. It's a law. It's like a law. If you drop a rock, it's going to fall to the ground. It's not an opinion. It's fact. And you do it. You mentioned something very important. You reach out to people when nobody's looking. You reach out to people when there's nobody in the dressing room except for you and Dave, and you're signing that autograph. There's 19,999 people watching me throw the drumstick to the handicapped person, but I didn't do it because her husband is a speaker, and
And
I
you
might have a
also, you stopped and made sure she got, you could have left, you made the
correct.
right intention, but you made sure she got it.
Yes, yes. And I have another career, and I'm not going to go into detail, but since the book came out, basically the career has like exploded.
Beat the odds in business and life. Sandy, I have so enjoyed spending more time with you. I was like, what are we going to talk about? We just talked like 2 months ago, but this was really important. This is important at a whole different level. Talking about the humanity of doing the right thing.
Right.
And that we do reap what we sow. And this is why you're having this wonderful life. This is why you have this wonderful wife, and you have this wonderful relationship with your daughter, and you have this new career, and it's because you put it out there in a wonderful way. And
And Vicky, and if I can, the simple man that I am, uh, anybody can, and to do it in the music business, I don't have to tell you how topsy-turvy and unpredictable, and the waters of the music business are filled with sharks, and they're dressed up as goldfish. And if I can do it in such an unpredictable business as the music business, someone in a kind of a quote unquote a straight business or a straight career can do it. You can do it. But yeah, we're out of time already. How come?
well, yeah, because I'm actually speaking tonight to
Oh, that's right.
entrepreneurs.
You are. You are.
And it's really interesting, Sandy, because somebody approached me today. I had this thing where I wrote for 5 minutes a day, and I committed to it, and I was accountable to someone. I have sent a check in to someone for 7,672 days. I've sent her a check in that I've written for at least 5 minutes. And I wrote a book. I sent you my book. Did you get my book? I
Yes,
sent
I
you the
did.
book. Yes. And so
I love the photo. I love the
the
beacon.
China Club is on
It
there.
is
Yeah.
the China and the beacon, right?
So, but anyway, I spoke at a meeting and this woman heard me say 5 minutes a day. And today she wrote to me and she said, because of you, I've been writing for 305 days every day. And I have a pitch meeting on Friday for a book proposal. Can you talk to me? And, I have a really packed. So I said, why don't you come to this meeting I'm speaking at tonight? Maybe I can help you there. And I have a workshop on Monday. But after listening to you for an hour and 15 minutes, fuck that. I'm going to make the time. And even though it's what I do and I get paid to do, and I'm going to just make the phone call and I'm going to talk to her because that's what we do. It's what we do.
That's what we do, Vicky. And that's why you are where you are. And that's why I am where
On
I am where-
Zoom, not able to get online. No, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
That's awesome, Vicky.
It's a wonderful life. Sandy, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed getting to know you again in this new incarnation. I'm going to send you pictures. I'm going to send you so many pictures.
Please do. In a couple of months down the road, you want to do part 3?
We'll do part 3.
Totally willing to do part 3.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Thank you so much. I adore you, Sandy.
I love you too, Vicky. Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you.